Welcome, everybody, to a new era, a new dynasty in the wrestling podcast space. We're no longer sold out. Thank you to all of you that voted on the new name of the podcast, because we are now the good, the bad, and the encyclopedia. We don't want to get copyright infringement lawsuit right here, folks. I am your host this week, the encyclopedia, and joining me is the good, the Reverend Jason Todd.
What's going on? Good to be back, folks.
And we know he's evil. He's our very own devil's advocate.
I'm very excited for our new beginning.
All right, so we're changing things up. We're not going to be doing everything quite completely the way we used to. We're going to try to do some different things here. We want to hear your comments. We want to hear your feedback. So under the video screen that you're watching right now, if you're watching through YouTube, comment. Let us know what you think. Okay? If you're on the audio, sorry, you're going to have to go to Instagram or something and comment on the post announcing this podcast. But we definitely want to hear from you. We want to give you guys what you want. Most of the time we'll be talking about wrestling, but with a title like this, we could spread the gamut a little bit. We know our former host, El Oso, is doing that on his other podcast. So, creative license here, folks. All right, but what's our bread and butter? It's pro wrestling. Let's be honest here, right? So it's been over a month since you've heard from us. We're happy to be back. We wanted to really plan things out. You could see we did a great job of that because we're still trying to figure some stuff out, but we got a new title, so at least that's a start. And let's start off. We'll talk about what's going on the latest with WWE since the last time we've been on. There's a lot going on with that. We have the draft that went down. We have Backlash that was in France. So let's start off with that. First off, for those of you that didn't get a chance, pause this now and jump onto Instagram. Check out Preaching from the Pulpit from our man, the Reverend, on his thoughts with the draft. Okay. Hope you enjoyed that.
Oh, yeah, that was for the fans watching. Sorry. Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that. It was very interesting to do something in under 5 minutes, and I refuse to talk for that little amount of time anymore.
I was going to say that's the best he ever sounded, because he actually had, some sort of filter. He had a time limit on those because Instagram won't let you go too far, although I think they've expanded the amount of time you could have on a video you post. So
I think they call it the Todd rule.
I will say this, if people did like that, and I hope people did enjoy it, I think it's something that we can end up doing more often, some little short, quick hits like that. Just throwing that out there for the listeners and the viewers.
You know what? A lot of people go to church because they have to, not because they want to. So if you want to keep preaching from the pulpit and we keep posting it, we're okay with that, okay? That might be one of the exceptions where we're not going to listen to the feedback. But anyway, that being said, can you recap?
If you hate it, who cares?
Right? So what, Jason, since you preach from the pulpit, now give us the homily.
All right. So first,
follow up on the draft.
I appreciate that any of you believe that I remember the things that I say. I appreciate that. It never happens, but I appreciate that you have that faith in me. I do still have my notes from those 2 nights of the draft, and the short of it is, night one, you could tell they were playing with, all right, well, we want people to know, we want Netflix to know who they're getting, we want USA to know who they're getting, and we want the CW to know who they're getting. And so that's why there were a lot of picks that it felt like nobody was moving. Bianca Belair was drafted to SmackDown. She's been on SmackDown for a while now, but it was smart if you want CW to know, hey, this is one of the people you're getting. This is one of the properties you're getting. I liked some of the draft. I liked Braun Breaker going to Raw. I liked the matchups that were presented. I liked seeing who else? Nia Jax going to SmackDown. I like that because she did everything with everybody on Raw, and I thought she had a great run since her return on Raw. You got to give her new people to work with now. I had made a comment about this, and I don't know what you thought at the time. That they picked Liv Morgan very high. I think she was round 2 on the first night, and I said
Did you have the draft results here? If you would rather me, I go through them quickly. Totally up to you.
quickly. What does that mean?
Well, there are a lot of draft picks.
Never
So,
heard
all right,
quickly. Yeah.
I'll
No.
confirm. Yes,
Yeah.
she was round 2 on night 1. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Round 2. Yes. Um. So yeah, I thought that was cool because they basically said, okay, we're gonna stick with her through this thing, even despite Rhea Ripley taking time off. I'm cool with that stuff. Aside from that, the first night there wasn't a lot. They did that bloodline story, and that was pretty cool. Of them getting picked later in the night. Really, the highlights were the fact that the Dudley Boys came out and presented, and Teddy Long came out and presented. Those were the major surprises for me. Other than that, nothing major. Kiana James being the first, the second of the NXT call-ups, the first being Carmelo Hayes. Hey, good for them. I'm happy for them. They deserve to be on there. I kind of like the way they presented that, with everybody in the NXT in the Performance Center, and it was more of that fourth wall type of thing being broken. Like, okay, you're seeing them as just people and performers being happy, genuinely happy for each other to get called up, and I like that idea. Um, and yeah, second night. Let's see, what did I think about the second night? I was happy for Lyra Valkyria. I think she'll be fine on Raw. Um, I'm glad that Raw kept Bronson, or Big Bronson Reed, and the other thing I made a note of was that they moved a lot of the stables to Raw, and that could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. I mean, depending on how you use them. The Final Testament. Um, who else? The Alpha
LWO.
Academy staying. The Say that again. Sorry.
LWO.
LWO, which was kind of, I was like, okay, LWO staying, but Legado del Fantasma staying on SmackDown. LWO went to Raw. Okay, cool. You know what? Give me more Ray and Dominic. I love Dominic Mysterio whenever he talks about his dad. I'm a fan. Um, Dragunov to Raw, that was a big one. And I like the idea of seeing him in high profile matches. I think those are going to be some really interesting matchups going forward. They teased that we'll get that Dragunov Gunther third match, I think, third or fourth match going on. I don't know. They could do 10 of those and I'd watch them. So good stuff. I mean, overall, I thought it was a good draft. I think people were expecting a lot more movement than we got, but the smartest thing they did was had Triple H come out on night 1 and say they're not only drafting to acquire new talent, they're drafting to keep the people they think that are important. And I think setting that as a baseline made more of those moves make sense. Overall, it's okay. We haven't seen a lot of these guys yet on their new shows. It's only been a couple weeks, so we'll see if it pans out, right? Were there any like movements that you really thought, you know, I guess moved the needle, you guys?
Who you throwing it to?
I'll throw it to my evil counterpart first.
Okay. Well, Anthony and I actually had this discussion when the last time we were hanging out together, and I think the problem with the draft is it's predictable because there are current angles going on, and they're not going to break those up. So, like AJ Styles had no chance he was going to be drafted to Raw because he was getting ready to challenge Cody. So, to me, it's flawed. You can't get drafted to a show you're already on. I think what they should do, if they're really going to do a true draft, there's two things I think they should do. It should be the Monday after WrestleMania, because that's when usually things get reset. So there are few angles at that point that you can affect. So I think it'd be less predictable. You wouldn't, if somebody got moved, you'd be like, "Oh, he got moved." And like, I think it was good that they kept the champions on the show, because I always thought it was stupid when the SmackDown champion got drafted to Raw, it made no sense. The champion should be immune to drafts. The other problem I have is these factions. You really want to shake things up? Draft Dominic Mysterio to SmackDown.
All right. Well, looks like we
Raw-
lost him
Raw can get 4
temporarily.
people.
Um,
Can you hear me?
You're gonna have to repeat yourself, sir, because the last thing we heard was your comment about Dominic Mysterio.
What I was saying is I don't think it's right that Raw gets 4 people and SmackDown gets 1. Like, everybody should be up for grabs. If I want Asuka, I should be able to take Asuka. I don't need to take all of Damage Control. Or I don't think you should be able to take all of that. If you want Damage Control, you need to draft all of them separately. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. It's like you're stacking one show to spite the other shows. Now, I really like the NXT part that Jason was talking about, where they were kind of all sitting together and they had obviously no idea what they were being drafted. I love that. But I think the other parts, I barely had any interest when I started seeing who it was. I'm like, oh wow, Judgment Day's got drafted. They're already on Raw. They're not drafted. Take Jamie McDonough and draft him to NXT. That's a shocking move. You know what I mean? Like, be a little more bold and be able to move people around. That's where the surprises come in. The only real surprises were the NXT people. I think everybody else kind of figured that they knew where everybody was going. They're not going to break up current angles. So a lot of people were just going to stay where they were. And Raw usually gets the bigger talent. So they weren't going anywhere either. So to me, it's always a disappointment every year because it's very predictable and there's very few surprises. And I think if they're going to do it, they should do it right. So, Encyclopedia, what do you think?
I think it was safe, is what I'd say. I thought a lot of it was safe. They didn't necessarily go moving people from show to show as much as I thought they should, at least especially on the first night. I don't have a problem with them drafting from scratch. If you just say everybody's up for grabs, I could see them doing it individually. If you want the whole faction, that's on you. But I could see the argument for the individual, so I'm okay with that. The other thing I read a lot of people saying was if it's truly a draft, and as you said, Raw and SmackDown already have their rosters. And I think the problem is they wouldn't bring in ratings. And, let's be honest, this is a business. They want to bring in ratings. You only draft from NXT because that's your developmental. It's like Major League Baseball doesn't redraft teams. They just draft really high schoolers, college students, signed free agents maybe. Saying basketball, hockey, all that. When they do a draft, they're not associated to a team, those people usually. So that's another way you could do it. I don't think it draws the eyeballs that you'd want it to. So that's why they do it this way. So, all right, the entire roster start from scratch. That said, I think I'm going to differ with you in that the drafts aren't always predictable. There have been times that the draft picks have been made and the storyline's in place, and that storyline's getting wrapped up at the next pay-per-view because somebody's going on to another show. And they've taken risks. Like if you go back, I think it was 2005. Cena was on SmackDown as the world champ, the WWE champion. He got drafted to Raw, and they waited until last week before the world heavyweight champion, I think was Batista, got drafted to SmackDown. So it was like it got to a point where like, okay, we know you're drafting him at some point, but Jesus Christ, you're waiting until the last possible minute. So it was like Raw for like 2 or 3 weeks. It was over several weeks. Raw had 2 world champions. SmackDown had jack shit. I thought the NXT picks were very well done. I'm going to be honest. I try to be transparent with everybody here. I'm a big baby at times. When Lyra got picked and watching her reaction, and I really have a soft spot for her, I started tearing up a little bit because it was just like so genuinely happy for her, living her dream. I'll be honest. When Blair Davenport had the same reaction, I was like, I don't give a shit. I don't know why. I don't get her, but I don't have to get everybody. I mean, there's people on Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW that the fans absolutely love, and I just don't get it, and that's fine.
I don't get Liv Morgan. Sorry.
I
know exactly what you're talking about. I don't get her at all. I don't understand.
And she just has a following to her, and yeah, I know what you guys mean about that. Like, there's something there, and hey, good for them because they're gonna let her make a good amount of money off of it. But yeah, she's like a niche
Yeah.
I don't get Jey Uso
Full
either. So I mean,
Well, I semi get him, but and the guy's over. I'll give him that. And then there's some picks that we still haven't seen these people, and that's fine. It's going to take time, but it's like some of them I'm like, you gotten picked 2 years in a row, and I don't remember you doing anything. So here's some that we didn't mention, and I'm scraping to the bottom of the barrel. Did you know for Monday Night Raw, Odyssey Jones was drafted? I don't even remember being on SmackDown or Raw last year either, and he was drafted.
I saw a meme about that. He's been drafted twice, and he ain't been on any show.
Right? Well, I guess you could
I
say
don't know who
like,
that is. I couldn't pick him out of a lineup, but I know he got drafted.
He's got presence. I got to give him that. He's definitely got a different look to him, but he actually kind of, in some respects, think of Mark Henry, but much younger, I guess, and probably more charisma. Because I'm sorry, Mark Henry didn't have jack shit for charisma. Sorry, bro. I don't think anyone from Busted Open's listening to our podcast right now. Anyway, drafted to Raw was Natalya. I've seen her on NXT every week since. Okay, Dijak. I think for Dijak, this is sink or swim, buddy. If you don't get over now, it's done. Release him. I think he was most at least interesting as Dominic Dijakovic. At least now he's got a character, but I've been watching this character on NXT for a year. I don't give a shit. Tegan Knox, again, whatever. I think she thinks she's Rainbow Bright from Australia. So good for you. You might be more interested if you came out with the little Rainbow Bright belt and the little skirt and all that shit. Maybe people would give a crap. Let's see who else we got here. I really like Pretty Deadly, but they stayed on SmackDown. Safe pick. Ilya Dragunov, you mentioned him. Him versus Gunther. I think we're going to build up to that over time. I would not be surprised to see him, and this has been rumored, third member of Imperium. I could see them going that route for a little while. And I'd be okay with that. We don't need to see Gunther. You don't need to blow your load on these dream matches right now. We got plenty of unique matches coming up that we could go with. Shinsuke Nakamura to SmackDown. I really hope this is a reboot for him because I thought his character got way more compelling when they made him the number one contender last summer, and he's become a job guy. Huh?
Those promos he was cutting.
They're so unique. Yeah.
Yeah. Really enjoyable.
So I'm really hoping the move to SmackDown that he rebounds somehow. I don't know. Kevin Owens is staying on SmackDown. I love Kevin Owens. He's one of my favorites. But I think he's just happy what he's doing. I'd love to see him get another world title reign. I don't think that's in his future anymore. It's kind of disappointing. Ivar found interesting, which I know supposedly he got injured last night on NXT as part of an angle, but he got drafted to Raw. He's been on NXT ever since. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. Does anyone remember them? That's right. They dropped the NXT Women's Tag Team titles to Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler last year, and I think we've seen them once or twice since then. And the only exciting thing they've done is Isla Dawn got a boob job apparently at some point, or a nose job or some shit. She doesn't look the same. All right, good for you, honey.
Thanks. Shayna need a boob job.
There's really an easy way to know the difference. I can't believe you don't know the difference.
What?
You can't tell if she got a nose job or a boob
I don't
job.
remember what she looks like right now. It was probably both. Well, then enlighten me, sir, because apparently you studied.
I can't quite put my finger on it, but maybe I
could. I can put two fingers on.
Well, it's not like we ever had a female audience. Round 3 on night 1, Ricochet. I get the guy's a great aerial wrestler and he could give you good matches. I'm sorry, the guy's boring as fuck. How is he around?
His girlfriend's more interesting than he is, and all she does is announce things.
Right. Braun Breaker. I'm really interested to see where they go with the fact that he wasn't put in King of the Ring, and I think it was because they knew he wasn't pegged to win the whole thing, so we're just not going to put him in it. And I'll give him credit; they called attention to it. But how many weeks is he going to wait for Adam Pearce to explain why he's not in the tournament?
Until the writers figure it out.
Come on, we're in the Triple H era. We're not in the Vince era. I'm sure they got something.
Right. That's true. Actually, I do think they probably have something for that, and I agree with you there too. They didn't need any of those matchups for him if he's not winning King of the Ring.
Yeah. Ilya Dragunov losing to Jey Uso in the King of the Ring tournament this week. I got to be honest, while I like Dragunov more than Uso, I was happy to see that because I felt like all the call-ups that they did put in the tournament, they were just having them win left and right, all the youngsters and stuff. And I'm like, all right, let's be realistic here. They're very new. They just got moved to the big time. Like, I love Lyra Valkyria. I don't think she should be getting past Io Sky this week. That's for sure.
As soon as Gunther won his match, I knew Dragunov was going to lose his match.
Yeah, because they're not throwing that on Raw.
They're not putting that, not right away, no. So as soon as Gunther won, and I'm like, oh, Dragunov, yeah, Jey Uso's going to win.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that. I mean, there was a small possibility, and they hinted at it backstage, I think, at one point. But yeah, um, so it wasn't a total bust, but they played it very safe, and that's where I gotta say, as much as I hate what Vince did a lot of times, I gotta say, at least the draft, I felt like they might have taken more risks when Vince was in charge of things. Um, Probably partially because Vince didn't give a fuck about these guys' lives. Where Triple
Also,
H,
maybe because Vince owned the company.
that could be it. But so you think Endeavor and TKO actually had a say on who went where?
I think when someone else is footing the bill, there are more considerations you have to make than what I want to do. So even now, Triple H has to have more considerations for which things he wants to fight for, because now he has to fight for them. Different from when he had to fight Vince for them. He has to fight people who really don't give a fuck about wrestling.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't, I'm not going to believe that completely. I think where TKO comes in is where they're hosting shows and where they think business wise might be drawing in more money. And I don't think it's on these draft picks. I don't think they touch this. But prime example, and it's kind of interesting because apparently Dana White said that they're going to finally stop doing fights there. NXT Battleground is going to be at the UFC Apex. I've seen plenty of UFC shows when I actually gave a damn and they didn't have one every single week. And especially during the pandemic, they went into the Apex to run shows for a while. Made sense then, didn't make sense now. And apparently Dana White said that they're going to stop running fights there. So we're going to have an NXT show there? That place, you think the NXT crowd for weekly shows is small? I think they fit even less in the Apex. It seems very odd to me that they're doing that show. The other thing, the rumor for weeks, and I guess I'm kind of turning the page here, the rumor for weeks, even prior to WrestleMania, was next year. Looked like it was coming to Minnesota. And then all of a sudden there was silence. And out of the blue, sounds like Endeavor actually played Hardball, the parent company. It's going to be in Vegas. And they're making such a big deal out of it. And I'm like, Vegas, didn't you just run a SummerSlam there? And you couldn't, I mean, granted, it was over a year ago, but you didn't get the building sold out then. And not to say that they wouldn't now, but I was just like, why are we going back to Vegas so soon after running a SummerSlam there?
Did you notice how they built that up? Because they made the whole point of telling the French press and the French audience, hey, make sure you hang out because we have a really important announcement of WrestleMania for WrestleMania. And I was like, oh, are they finally going to do like some European country or something like that, or somewhere else? Because they're like, yeah, the audience has been great, so we want you guys to make sure you hear this message. And then Vegas. I was like, oh.
And they didn't even announce it at the press conference of WWE thing. No. You had to watch the Kentucky Derby to find out.
Yeah, I didn't. That was one of those, I'll just look it up in the morning.
I mean, yeah. I'm going to be honest. I mean, those of you that know me well enough from listening all these years, my wife is very into horses. She wasn't home. I had the Derby on, but I was saying to myself, I don't think WWE fans were switching over to the Derby just because they wanted to find out about WrestleMania. If they were doing it because they liked horse racing or they like the biggest sporting events of the year, and that's why they were watching it. So it seemed like an odd mix. Okay, whatever. It is what it is. But yeah,
press conference after King and Queen of the Ring, they'll be like, yeah, just watch the next Live Golf tournament for an announcement.
Well, watch the next WNBA game. We're going to announce where SummerSlam is.
Well, and then what are the other rumors that are coming up now? There's rumor. Apparently, the mayor of London tweeted out about having WrestleMania there, and Triple H came back with "Let's talk." And I'm like, boy, I hope you come through on that because I would go to that one. I would absolutely go to that one. I don't like the rumors that they want to have the Royal Rumble and/or WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia, and I'm like, I don't know. That feels like a step down to me. I could see the Royal Rumble I'm okay with. If you want to run one there, that's fine. I don't think WrestleMania should be in Saudi Arabia, partially because I don't think you're going to get a worldwide audience there that you would at the other locations we're talking about. Minnesota might have been a stretch, I will admit that, but I just don't see a worldwide.
Don't even watch half the show. Like, I realize they're doing it for the money, but if you watch the crowd, half of them, they're not even paying attention to what's going on in the ring.
It's about a status thing over there. You know, it's like It's
Like a
like,
Laker game.
yeah, yeah. It's like, oh look, it doesn't. I'm not a fan. I'm just here because it's the cool thing to do. It makes me look like a big shot. Whatever. Anyway, be that as it may, we're talking about international events. That crowd at Backlash, holy crap! Really? Wow. And you're not going to get that everywhere. I don't care how hard they try to duplicate it and bring it to the U.S., for example. The U.S. fans are not doing that. I mean, how many times the show's good and you're like, this crowd doesn't give a fuck, I don't know, but I think the highlight for me was that the crowd singing Randy Orton's theme to him. Like even he was kind of blown away. Like, what the hell's
No,
going on here?
I liked when they were singing to Bailey.
Yes, they gave her
Let's
the
start.
full treatment. I loved it.
They did that, and that's been something that it's happened in Europe. It started at an NXT takeover in London. I remember the first time she was facing Nia Jax, and even she. I remember they were both kind of looking around like, what the hell's going on here? Yeah, the French fans were just absolutely awesome, and it might be the rarity of having a WWE premium live event there. If you think about it, they're going very. I mean, it's the title, and it was actually funny enough years ago. Lawler was complaining about them running some show somewhere. I think might have been Canadian Stampede, and Vince had to say it is the World Wrestling at the time Federation. They're really getting that worldwide presence out there. And if you think about it, from WrestleMania to SummerSlam, there is not one U.S. pay-per-view. The closest is Toronto. And then the first event after SummerSlam is in Berlin, Germany. So the other thing, and they're getting top dollar for that. I'm seeing complaints left and right about what they're charging overseas. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I looked at the Money in the Bank tickets because my wife suggested maybe we could go up to Toronto around July 4th, and there's an exhibit that we were interested in, and I was like, oh, Money in the Bank's going to be there. Fucking nosebleeds. I think we're going for easily. It was like 350 Canadian, and I was like, what for
Only 35
nosebleeds?
US dollars.
I wish it was that low, but yeah, I was just like for nosebleeds, and then I'm seeing people like I'm seeing memes of the Scotland prices for upper deck are even higher than that. And here's the problem: we could all complain about the prices all we want. People are willing to pay it.
Well, because it's the one chance you're going to get to see live WWE action, so of course you're going to go.
And TKO Group, what's the other company? UFC. UFC's been charging insane prices for years and getting it. I have not got. When I was a big UFC fan, I did not hit one MSG show because I'm like, I am not paying $500 or whatever it was to sit in the nosebleeds of MSG for a UFC fight. But they're getting it. So when people start complaining to me about the prices and they're like, this is insane, why are they doing this? And I'm like, because there's people out there buying it.
I mean, when AEW ran Wembley, right?
Mm-hmm.
People, they were crowing about that. But I'm like, on the other hand, how often does AEW get to England?
The
I would
prices
go.
weren't that high.
But I mean, they were like crowing that they sold out, but I'm not surprised because how often do they get there? You know, if I love John Moxley, this is the chance to see him.
That was it.
If I love Danielson, this is the chance to see him. So if you're talking about another extra $100 for a ticket or something, I'm going to pay it. That's my one chance to see a live AEW event. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's the same thing in Germany, and that's why they can charge premium prices because people are going to pay because this is your one chance. Who knows when they're going to come back to Germany? So I mean, it's not a great accomplishment that they're selling out. They're just meeting a demand.
Mm-hmm.
There's so few times they go there. I mean, when's the next time they'll hit Germany? Who knows?
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
So you're gonna pay. Like what I say to you, like one of the last autograph shows, Shawn Michaels was going to be there, and I forget how much he was charging, and I think I said to you, I realize he's charging a lot, but when's the next time I'm going to get to meet Shawn Michaels? You know, I don't know. So if I'm yes or no, I'm kind of leaning towards yes. I mean, eventually I just couldn't go, so I didn't go, but I probably would have paid it just because it's him and it's the one chance I'm going to get to meet him.
You got to make the decision for yourself. In your mind, it's worth that money. Look, WrestleMania. I know I asked a bunch of you guys, both of you, and you guys were straightforward from the top and said probably. Rob said absolutely not. I know Jason was considering it, but then he had a wonderful trip to Japan, so totally get that. But I had actually reserved to the fact I had like 6 or 7 people that said they were interested in going, and then one by one they all bailed out.
Oh, it's expensive.
Yeah, and I reserved myself to. I'm not going. Then I'm gonna have people over for night 1. I'll watch night 2 by myself, whatever. And about 2 weeks prior, somebody came up to me and said, "Oh, why aren't we going?" So I said, "I'll do night 2." I look at prices, and then I get a text back. I didn't realize how much it was going to cost for me not to watch on the screen. And I'm like, yeah, part of it is the presence of being there. That's partially what you're paying for, is the experience of being there in person. If that's not worth it, no, I want to be there, but I don't want to be looking at the screen. And then my argument was, okay, when you go to a baseball game or you go to a football game, are you telling me that you could see that clearly from your seats without paying top dollar? Well, that's different.
Yeah, but I
I
mean, the
don't think
difference
so.
is this area we get pay-per-views and Raws and stuff all the time. So like I look at it like if I don't go to this WrestleMania, I'll go the next time it comes around. And I
Or
got
they'll
New
do a
York, I got
live event.
Philly, I got Boston, I got Maryland. We're all within driving distance. So if I really want to go, I'll just hit the next live event. You know what I
Which,
mean? Like it
yeah.
wasn't such a big deal, and there wasn't really, while it was WrestleMania, there weren't like a match that I really was like, oh my god, I have to see it. Like I would have rather gone to last year's because I thought Cody was going to win last year,
Mm-hmm.
and that would have been the thing I wanted to see. This year, we all kind of knew he was going to win. Like the one criticism I have for WWE is predictable. I mean, look at the last pay per view. We all ran the table. There were no guesswork needed. We figured it all out. So I mean, part of that ruins it a little bit for me. Like I like one thing I do like they're doing right now is they're doing some of these King of the Ring matches at house shows.
I like
That
that, using
means
that
there's a
for
little bit of
important matches.
unpredictability floating on, right? It used to be like that. I remember going on a Raw. I mean, Diesel won the WWF Championship at a house show. I was there. That's how I know. It wasn't televised. And I was like, you got to go to a house show because you never know what you're going to see. Now it's like, nothing's really going to change. They're not going to do nothing carries over to TV and all that kind of stuff. They don't even talk about the house shows. They're kind of turning that around now. I hope it lasts, but the predictability is what kills me on some of these, like the Royal Rumble. We've been picking Rumble winners for the last few years. It's been painfully obvious, and to me, that's the one thing that Vince brought that Triple H hasn't brought, is that unpredictability. So it makes me less want to go to see a live event because I already know who the winners are going to be.
I think part of the reason why it's been predictable is he's trying to give the fans what they want, because for years they weren't getting it. He's trying to build that goodwill back that's been missing for years because Vince just didn't care. I
Yeah, how
think
many
that
times did you lose in your hometown, right?
right, and I think when Triple H was running NXT, I don't think he always gave the fans exactly what they want. He did it at the right time, so I think it's the balance he is working towards. I think right now it's just that it's been so long. And look, let's be honest, we weren't supposed to see Cody versus Roman this year. I mean, I thought they knew what they were doing. This was the plan all along, and then it's come out that no, it's not. They pulled an audible. Fine, good for them. I could deal with that. And that leads me into something else I want to get into. But before we get there, I think they will get to that point where it's not always going to be predictable. I just think right now they burn so much goodwill of the fans with their booking, especially the last several years under Vince, that they're just trying to get that goodwill back. And it's been working. The ratings did go up for a while. And granted, they started hitting record heights. Well, not record heights, but all-time high. Well, not even all-time highs, but highs for the last several years when The Rock was on there. But even still, while they haven't been able to maintain that, and we all knew that was going to happen, the ratings are still not dropping to the levels that they thought they would. They're not quite where they were this time last year, but they're still comparable. They got all their TV deals in place. I mean, and then there was like a 2-3 month period. Raw had no home for the
And
last
now
quarter of this
that's
year, and it's not
it's
much. USA Network, I think, for like what's going to equate to less than a quarter, is only paying them 25 mil, which isn't great, but at least they got a home. And then somebody passed a comment that 25 mil is still half of what AEW is getting for an entire year worth of programming, and I was like, ouch. I'm I hope AEW gets a good deal this time, because for all the bragging Tony Khan's doing, we'll get to AEW. Um, you mentioned Cody and the title win, and then this past week we had the new episode. We had two new episodes of Rivals. We had Seth versus Triple H, and then we had Cody, or I'm sorry, not Cody, Cody's dad, Dusty, against Ric Flair. I wasn't watching NWA then. I didn't know the whole story. I didn't realize there was 3 matches.
Oh, it was more than that.
But it was 3 main matches on
Yeah.
pay-per-view, and it went over a year. That whole thing went over a year and a half, and it made me think, I wonder what the reaction would have been if they did a Dusty finish in match 2. Like, I can't imagine today if they did it was Dusty, Ric Flair 2, at least. It was a year in between those matches, at least the way Rivals positioned it. And I get that there was probably more matches on house shows and what have you. But can you imagine if they had us waiting a year for Cody to get his rematch with Roman and they did a Dusty finish then?
The Dusty finish, like you said, not only happened at house shows, but titles too.
I'm
Like,
sorry,
do
you
you think
broke
the
up
Road
there.
Warriors? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I say the house shows not only it carried over to house shows, like you said, but it also carried over to the other titles. So, like, you think the Road Warriors won the tag team title? They didn't. They pinned the wrong guy. So that's what Dusty got killed for. Is he used a Dusty finish
Too often.
everywhere, too often, and it was house shows. It was like prevalent, like it happened all the time. People
Yeah.
would leave thinking Dusty won the belt, and he really didn't. You know, you'd show up on TV the next week, and Ric Flair would be holding the NWA title, and you realized you thought you saw a title change, and you didn't. Or they would tell you on the spot he didn't win. You know, he threw him over the top rope or whatever. So, people would have killed. They would have burnt that stadium down.
Yeah, I think it had to be at WrestleMania. And I think the problem is now you couldn't necessarily get away with it. Like if they did that Dusty finish in a rematch at SummerSlam, and then we knew, okay, there's still WrestleMania, there'd be a little bit of an uproar, but I don't think on the same level if they had done it at WrestleMania. I mean, if it wasn't Bloodline rules and there were all those run-ins and the referee happened to be knocked out, new referee came in and ended up counting the 3 with the same finish we saw now, but then we see the first referee signaling for the disqualification when the first run-in came in, barely standing. Yeah, there would have been a huge uproar. That referee, as much as it's scripted and we all know it, that referee better have the best security in the world. He better have the freaking Secret Service ready to get him out of that stadium. I don't think it would have worked. I think it would have been brilliant because I didn't know that history, and I was like, wow, though, if I was invested back then and I waited a year to see my man Dusty get the belt, and then it turned out he didn't get the belt because the original referee called for a DQ.
See, here's the thing you're forgetting, though, too. Back then, it was territories. So Flair and Rhodes weren't in your face every week. It only got to the last match where you saw them when they both settled in the Mid-Atlantic area, that you saw them every week. But before that, Flair wrestling in Portland, and Flair would be wrestling in Florida and Georgia. So when he came to the Mid-Atlantic area or the Florida area, that's when he and Dusty would tangle. So it wasn't as bad as like we see Cody every week, we see Roman every week, or Roman, whatever he decides to show up.
I was going to say we see Roman every week. That was your number one complaint.
That's why I fixed it. So
see a Samoan every week. Not
it was
Roman.
it was a little different. But you could get away with it because you notice they kept raising the stakes, they kept adding different people, right? First it was, I mean, if you looked at the first match when Ric Flair won, he won at a non-televised event, and that there was no fanfare because a lot of people didn't want Flair to be champion, as they said. So, Dusty lost, and Dusty didn't want to lose. If you notice, every time Dusty loses, it's some kind of fugazi finish. He never wanted to lose clean. So, I mean, that was another problem. Dusty never wanted to give the belt up once he got it. And the promoters didn't really have faith in him to be a long-term champion. As you saw, his reigns were always short. So there was a lot different than the now. But your point being, if they would have tried to do that, the people would have rioted. I mean, they would have ruined all the good faith that they had. So, but
it would have been worse than if Rob Van Dam hadn't pinned John Cena at that one night stand. If Cena wins, we riot.
I never believed the sign more than I believed that one.
They would have tore that place to the ground. They would have burnt, was it Hammerstein Ballroom? Ballroom? They would have burned that place to the ground.
Oh my God. And then and who would have thought that you would have heard a thank you Edge chant? Like RVD didn't even win clean that night, but they didn't give a crap. They were like, RVD won. And I'm like, it would have been so much better though if if he won clean. But anyway, I digress. All right, so that's enough with WWE. Let's move on over to AEW. It's been a while there. First off, we had Dynasty. I know not everybody got a chance to see that. I know, Rob, you did, so wanted to get your thoughts on what you thought of that show and really AEW the last several weeks.
As always, mixed feelings. Jason, if I can recommend one match to try to track down, it'll be Ospreay Danielson because it was truly amazing. It might be the best match I've seen in the last 10 years. Because it had everything. It had technical. It had brawling. They changed speeds.
Selling.
Right. They went quickly. They went slowly. They really worked a match. So if I can recommend one match to try to track down, it would be that one.
I look forward to watching it.
Swerve got his due. He won, which is great. It was a good match. I have to say, at this point in time, I'm probably the biggest Young Bucks fan that I'd ever been, and I'm not saying I'm a big fan, but I'm enjoying what assholes they're truly allowing themselves to be, and I think it's funny. So I'm enjoying them, and I think they're doing well finally. I feel the same way about Toni Storm. I can't get enough of her. Every time I think I'm going to get done with that, she just takes it to a different level and goes in a different place, and I think it's great.
So while we're waiting
I was
for...
glad that she won.
Oh, there he is. I was about to say, while we're
I'm
waiting
back.
for the Devil's Advocate to get back from hell, the last thing we heard was your comment about Toni Storm. So,
yeah, I was just saying how much I enjoy her character, and every time I think I'm going to get sick of her, she swerves, excuse the term, and just makes it better.
And thank God for her in this feud with Serena Deeb, because when Serena Deeb's cutting a promo and they made a number one contender, I was like, is anyone going to give a shit?
Well, no, I mean, I felt bad for her because she has a very emotional story, and the crowd clearly could give two shits. So, I mean, sorry, Serena, I don't see you winning in this scenario. And the rest of the card was good. I mean, the trios match, the Okada Pac match, it was a great card. I mean, I really enjoyed it. It's just, they're a little long. And, by the time we got to Swerve, I was a little tired. And I was trying to hang on because I wanted to watch that match. I wanted him to win, but I think I had to watch it in 2 segments because after a while I just got tired. I was just like, I need to take a few minutes away. So I have the benefit. I enjoy it more when I'm not watching it all in one shot because it's a long time to watch. And it was still a great card though. I mean, like I said, Jason, if you have a chance, the whole card is good. Strong O'Reilly was good. Okada Pac was good. Even Jericho and Hook. I mean, whatever. It wasn't bad. They could have saved that for Dynamite though. I don't think that needed to be on the pay-per-view. But it was a good card. It was a very good card. I enjoyed it. It's one of those ones. There are certain matches I would go back and watch for sure.
What about your thoughts, Encyclopedia?
Yeah, I actually thought for an AEW show, I thought it was one of the better paced ones they've had. I didn't feel exhausted by the end of it. I thought some of the matches they weren't great matches necessarily. They might have been good matches, but they didn't also go on for too long. I'll be honest, this Learning Tree Chris Jericho thing, I'm actually intrigued by it. I actually find it interesting. Granted, it's like the 6th different character innovation we've had of Chris Jericho in the last 2 weeks, probably. But all that being said, I think the Learning Tree, it's definitely different. He's not, he's not as good in the ring as he once was. But come on, he's in his mid-50s. Let's give him some credit there. He's definitely moving better than a lot of these guys in their mid-50s that still hang on. That Ospreay. I love Ospreay's finisher. That elbow to the back of the head. I love that finisher. I've gotten to a point where I've randomly opened up Spotify and started playing his theme song. The guy's great. I really hope this whole allegiance with Don Callis goes out the window. And, I know they're leaning that way, hopefully sooner than later. Willow Nightingale winning made sense because of Mercedes Moné. And I'm saying Monet because apparently that's what she's saying. I thought it was Monet, but she keeps saying Monet. So I'm like,
It's money.
she can't make up her mind, is what I really think it is.
She don't bring in no money.
Yeah, well.
Well, I mean, if she'd wrestle, maybe
she
ever.
I think I
Nobody
don't think
paying a hair
I
or
don't think it's a joke. I don't think she's medically cleared yet. So
okay.
I don't think that was a joke, but we'll see.
She's supposed to
is
be
it,
cleared by the pay-per-view.
which is
so.
interesting that they knew that already. But yeah, and I heard that's one of the triple main events at this point. I was like, wow, the women's championship is not in the main event, but the mid card title is. What they've done that, I know WWE. I think it was SummerSlam '92. The main event was Bret Hart versus the British Bulldog for the Intercontinental title. So it's not that it hasn't been done. I'll be honest, Strong and O'Reilly, I was kind of like, whatever. I'm not gonna lie there. I just didn't love it. Same. I'll be honest. I know Timeless Tony Storm. The character is interesting. I could give two craps about her and Thunder Rosa. I don't know. Thunder Rosa, I think, is overrated. Great for Swerve. Unfortunately, I was actually reading some theories now that he's actually kind of playing second fiddle. It's starting to look like the Rey Mysterio title reign, where he's not getting the world championship, is not getting top billing, not even close. Swerve's kind of a rung down because of what's going on with the elite. And I gotta agree with Rob. You guys are sick of hearing me about the Young Bucks and how much I hate them. I'm actually intrigued by this. The belief by a lot of fans that they're assholes. They are so playing into it, and they're doing such a great job. I don't like the fact that they dragged Okada into this, but it's working for them. Jack Perry with that running with the ladder match and what he's doing, I think that's all been very well done. The only way I think that they could top this, and I don't see it happening because he's made a career on his podcast of shitting on the product, but if Bischoff was behind this new elite group, to stick it to Tony Khan, I think it's the only way they can make it even better. Because
I don't think Tony Khan can work with Bischoff.
I don't think he can anymore either. I think Tony Khan is too. He takes things too personally when he shouldn't.
Unless he's a better actor than we give him credit for because of what we've seen him do.
Oh yeah, because that punch in the stomach he took looked so pro. Great job, sir. And thank God the storyline has been so interesting because his comment calling WWE the Harvey Weinstein, I'm like, bro, and you could see as he was saying it, it was like it was like the kid in high school trying to get a reaction out of his friends, being the cool kid saying the most shocking thing there. I was just like, bro, you're in your 40s now. You're an adult. You're an executive for a football team in both England and the U.S. Let's be honest. It's football in England, so be it. You're going to be taking the reins from your dad one day. That's the assumption. This is how you present yourself. Also, you look like a spoiled brat all the time. You look like you're not connected with the world, and it's like, I'm sorry. You really need to watch what you're saying. I know you did it for reaction, and you could see the NFL Network guys. They were like cutting it off, like trying to change the subject as quickly as possible because they were like, "Did he really just do that?" Go ahead.
I want to. If I have the opportunity, I'd like to talk to Tony Khan for a moment, if I may.
Do you have penance for him that you're going to give him?
I don't know if there's enough. Tony Khan, you say a lot of things. Like you get in your feelings. You rage tweet. You say some things, the backhanded things about the other companies that you just can't let go. But I know for a fact your father spent a lot of good money to put you in good schools. And of all the things that you could do, you got up there on TV and said WWE was the Harvey Weinstein. And that's just distasteful in its own right. But can we talk about what an analogy is? Because I don't think you could have graduated high school without knowing how they work. Don't tell me your Pepsi Cola and WWE is Harvey fucking Weinstein. If I were there in the room with you, would have just grabbed the mic from you and just cut the interview short. Because come on. He tried to do that thing. I'm glad you said high school encyclopedia because that's exactly what it was. It was the dumbest kid in the class trying to sound smarter.
Jason, I made him do it.
Well, then you were doing a top-notch job down there at the gates of at those fiery gates.
I'm sitting right over here. Say it, Tony. Say it. Go ahead. Do it. Use Harvey. Say Harvey Weinstein. Do it. Do it.
But
Come on. Just come
why?
on. Stop trying to be the cool. Stop trying to position yourself as someone cool and we got the cool product and we're doing this. Just just shut up.
You know what the
Just
problem with
stop.
you know what the
But
problem with this angle is?
mhm.
While it's great what the Young Bucks are doing, at some point Tony Khan is going to want to get even.
I
And
know.
you know what that means? That means more Tony Khan on TV and
Ugh,
him involved in this angle. And the one thing I
no.
didn't really want is him to get involved.
I thought they were really gonna try to remove him from the picture, and then they did that thing where he's like, "No, hi everybody, I'm remote," and I was like, "Oh, come on, Tony, just come on,
With all the
stop."
money he's got, he could pay for some acting classes. That's for sure.
Well, like I said, he got English classes, and he still didn't know how an analogy worked. So I don't think acting classes are gonna help him anytime soon. I do want to echo what you guys said about the Bucks, though. And it was the thing I hoped when they had announced the whole backstage video. It was me hoping that they're going to become over the top versions of what everybody says they are. And I like it. The only thing is they're doing such a good job of it. It's now the main event, where I am a person who believes the main event should be your world champion. And I believe that Swerve Strickland is doing stuff that's good enough to merit being the main event. And I believe Christian has been especially heinous during this title chase of his and is also worthy of being the main event. And I feel like they're not going to be. And even if they get the main event spot at the next pay-per-view, it's not going to be built up as strongly as it deserves.
By the way, while you were going through your rant, I did call the local reverend at the next parish down the street to hear your confession because Rob succeeded and Tony Khan succeeded where no one else could. You dropped an F bomb, sir.
Is that my
You
first one?
sinned. You sinned.
Eh, call it evolution.
Right here, buddy. I knew I'd corrupt you eventually.
Look, the two sides of the same coin, man. We gotta work together sometimes on that stuff. No, I come on. I have no patience for mangling of any language that I know. If I know the language, I have no patience for it being mangled by anybody who could afford to go to those schools. Never.
All right.
Still
Anything
mad.
else to add, folks? No?
No.
All right. So we want to thank you guys for listening to the very first edition of The Good, the Bad, and the Encyclopedia. We hope you come back and join us on a weekly basis. We definitely, like I said, comment down there or go on the Instagram post, comment, tell us what you think.
Like, share, subscribe.
Yeah, Rob, I don't know why you're pointing up because the video is always
Well,
up here and the comments are
but
always
I'm in
down.
hell, so everything is
Okay.
up.
Okay. I don't think YouTube has the functionality to split the video under the comments and above the comments, but anyway.
All right. Well, for continuity's sake, how's that?
Okay, thank you. So yeah, we want to hear your thoughts. Next week, all right, we're going back to our tired and true in some respects, but we'll give you our picks because that's what we do. The belt's still in hell. The gold's not melting yet, though. The guy that left the podcast still hasn't sent the belt to Rob, so maybe that's the real reason why it hasn't melted.
Still in the mail.
Yeah, lost in the mail. All that being said, we do have the King and Queen of the Ring finals coming up next week. So, in spirit of the King of the Ring, we're going to give you our top 5 King of the Rings of all time. We're each going to pick our top 5. So you can look forward to that next week as well. And again, we'd like to hear your comment. We want your feedback. Give us your top 5 King of the Rings in these comments. Okay?
Any ideas you want us to talk about? Any segments you might want to hear about? We'd love to hear that as well.
Yeah, Rob, why don't you, before we sign off, why don't you throw out some of your ideas? Maybe they'll let us know what they think of those.
Okay. Well, I mean, I threw out some things like match of the week or wrestler of the week, who's hot, who's not, things like that. Just on a weekly basis, we'll pick our wrestler of the week or our match of the week, or we'll. I have something I wrote in here called the kayfabe corner, which is just if there's a particular angle we want to dissect. If those topics sound interesting, drop it in the notes. We'd love to hear from you guys.
And one of the ideas I see here, rebook an angle. So if we didn't like the way some angle went, we're going to rebook it the way it should have been. God knows. Rob's up to seven. I think we're up to 7 figures for his rebooking suggestions over the years. Another thing we'll probably bring back, and if you guys want to go back and check it out, it was several years ago. It must have been at least 4 or 5 years ago. We're going to do our own pay-per-view supercards, and we'll have rules around that. So you'll see that coming up. We're not going to do that often. That'll be more of a rare thing, but maybe for SummerSlam, we'll do our first ever SummerSlam supercard, and we'll give you the rules about that when we get to that point. But and Jason, any other new innovative ideas you want to throw out there for them to consider?
Yeah, I'm a debate fan, but like legitimate debate fan, and there's some topics that every so often friends and I talk about that it might be worth a debate between the three of us, or discussion between even just two of us, and have someone moderate it, because I just like to hear the differing opinions. And I'd also like to take times to maybe highlight a promo, or especially highlight a promo that you really liked from the previous week, or something that someone did, some little thing that you noticed some wrestler doing, someone on the come up, as they say, the kids say out there nowadays, someone on the come up that you notice that, hey, they're doing some nice stuff and you want to highlight it, or someone that you notice in doing some stuff and you want to highlight it. I think these are things that'll be fun to talk about. And yeah, again, if you guys are watching, you guys are watching wrestling and there's something you want to talk about, you want us to talk about, let us know.
All right, great. So again, we thank you guys for listening, and we hope you catch us out next week. And this is The Good, the Bad, and the Encyclopedia. This is the Encyclopedia signing off. Have a great weekend, all.